right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of A Case for Travel Tuesdays. I'm excited to have my guest with me this morning, Chelsey Schultz from the Ninja Gypsy travel blog. She's an author and a martial artist, and her blog is where you can explore anywhere in the world safely. And Chelsey is joining us from Tucson, Arizona, and we got time zones mixed up, so we're a little
My bad.
But no problem. That's what happens in these days. So yeah, so thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to get to be here with you and your audience. This is awesome.
Well, and it's fun because you and I have collaborated in written works over the last couple of years, and this is the first time we've actually physically talked to one another.
I know, isn't that crazy? I feel like I know you so well, but I've never actually spoken to you face to face before. Well, yeah. Kind of face to face.
It's neat. And that's the power of the travel industry as well, isn't it? We connect on so many different levels.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So you and I both have the incurable travel bug. How did you feed that need before COVID?
Well, before COVID hit, I was fortunate enough that I was able to work as an international pet sitter. So I went from country to country, state to state, taking care of people's animals while they went on vacation. And it allowed me to travel because I just did it full time. So I just hopped from place to place to place. And since I work online, my job could just go with me. So it didn't really matter that part as much. So I was able to work like a normal individual, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I got to do it in all these different places around the world and then take the weekends and the evenings to explore the place in a really in-depth manner because I was in someone's house and their neighborhood versus like the tourist traps.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I've been doing it.
And I think that's something that's going to become more popular as well. The work world is changing, not just the travel world, but everything is changing. And I think not necessarily a digital nomad, but the mobility of work is going to change. And, that's what we're setting ourselves up with, that we can work from anywhere in the world and experience different countries and different lifestyles. And I think that's going to be a way of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not? If you have the ability to pick up your work and take it with you, why not do it in a different city every month or a different country? You get to see so much more of the world instead of just being behind your screen in the same city every day, all year long.
Yeah, exactly. So you are not afraid to travel alone?
No, I am not. At least not all the time. Most of the time, I'm not afraid to travel alone.
Yeah, so that phrase is what started the Ninja Gypsy persona. Tell us more about that.
Okay, so I was traveling in Southeast Asia a few years back, and I was traveling solo, and I was going to all these different places, and I kept running into these women who were just astonished. I mean, like locals and other people from Europe and America being like, oh, "You're traveling by yourself. What are you doing? It's so dangerous." And I was like, "No, it's fine. I didn't quite understand their fear behind it. And I wasn't sure if that was because of the martial arts background. But I think it's because I didn't grow up with a preconceived notion that traveling by yourself is dangerous. And for me, it was just like, nope, I'm going to do this. I can do this as well as any man. I just have to, maybe be a little bit more careful. And when I was traveling, I kept running into these women, and I realized that this feeling was so common among female travelers that I think it was something that needed to be addressed. And that's why I started the Ninja Gypsy, was to teach women how to travel safely, because that's not something they teach you in school. So I wanted to teach them, the simplest ways to be safe while you travel that don't involve, 10 plus years of martial arts training, but the common sense practices that aren't necessarily taught. So that's what kind of started this whole thing.
And that's a connection that you and I had as well, was the martial arts background. I'm not a martial artist per se, but my son is. So that started a connection with us. But I was at one point a women's self-defense instructor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and loved it. And the number one thing I think we learned was to protect yourself was avoidance. So
Yes,
just, and, be aware of your surroundings, avoid areas that could be sketchy, just, use your common sense. That's the
absolutely.
number one way to stay safe.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we teach in the ABCs of self-defense, that my sensei taught us. And it's something we teach the kids, but it applies to adults as well. As A in the ABCs of self-defense is avoid dangerous places. And dangerous places isn't always like a sketchy alley or
mhm.
something like that. It's a place where no one knows where you are, or it's a place that you have no control of the situation. It's a place where you can't leave. Those are the kind of areas you want to avoid to the best of your ability, because that's where bad things happen.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a story when we went to Spain,
Mm-hmm.
and it was for actually a World Karate Championships. And some of the people we were traveling with, they had went to a bar in a group,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the women was slowly being separated from her crowd by the other people. But
Mm-hmm.
they were wise enough to realize what was going on, and so, all right, let's go, right?
Yep, just pull her back and let's get
Yeah,
out of here. Yeah,
yeah.
those kind of scenarios, they happen almost, the people who make those scenarios happen to it very slowly and subtly, and you have to be aware not to put yourself in that situation and how to get out before it's too far gone, right? To be like, nah, nope, I'm getting further away from my friends. Like, you don't want to be separated from the herd,
No,
even as
no,
an elk or as a person.
yeah, that's true. So how have you combined your love of travel and the martial arts?
I've been fortunate enough, while traveling, to get to practice martial arts in a few different places. Not as much as I would like, because the martial arts community is really tight and it takes a little while to get
Yes.
into, especially when you go from different styles. But when I was living in South Korea, I got to practice Taekwondo for about a year, which was amazing. When I was in Thailand, I took a Muay Thai private class, which
Nice.
was really funny. The gentleman who was teaching me didn't speak a lot of English and had no idea that I had any kind of training. I tried to tell him, and he just looked at me like I had three heads. When I started
Yeah.
practicing with him, he was like, that's not that's not a newbie. um so
Wow,
like
she picks
those
this up quick.
yeah, like, wow, what is going on here? I'm so confused. The look on his face was great. And he was a young guy too. He must have been like 18 years old.
Mhm.
So when I go to these different places, I try to keep a lookout for, martial arts opportunities, even if it's just getting to explore the traditions. For instance, when I was in Okinawa, that's where my style of karate comes from. And even though I wasn't able to practice because I went at Christmas time, and everything was kind of shut down, I was able to go to like the karate bar and get to see all the different things. It's where, the tourists kind of congregate. But I was also able to look at the different shops that sell the stuff and go to the museums and everything that was kind of involved. So just essentially making it a priority when I travel. Some people want to go to churches or are focused on food, and I'm just like, fighting, let's go.
I know a lot of people like you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
coming from
assuming
the,
so with your son's history with martial
yes,
arts.
really, that's kind of what got us started on traveling
Mm-hmm.
to far places. And the first time we went overseas was to a world championship, a karate championship. So
Wow.
yeah, that was Spain, that we went to Spain. So that was exciting. And then Italy, and it just kind of
Keep
blossomed from
going.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
And
was I was
he's,
fortunate enough to get to interview your son and learn about your guys' martial arts story, which was awesome. He
yeah,
sounded like he did a great job.
he did. And he's grown up and moved away and not practicing right now. And I know he misses it terribly. And, you
It's a
got to
piece
go
of
to
your
school and go to
soul.
work. Yeah, go to school and
That's
go to work. And it's tough. So, but I know he'll pick it up again sometime.
Mhm.
And we miss the community. I do miss the martial arts community because, like you said, it's tight knit. We go to these events and get together and have fun and make new friends. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a beautiful community. And once you're in for life.
Hmm.
And even if you go away for 5, 10, 15 years, people understand that life gets in the way. And
Yeah.
once you come back, they're like, all right, come back in. We got you. Let's do this.
And
on your
it's
gear.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. And relating back to travel is the same with communities. Like you're a solo female traveler.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I've never been a solo female traveler. The first trip I took by myself actually was to Boston in 2019 to go to TravelCon.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was so exciting. It was the first time I went by myself because, I've been married for so many years, over 25
Mm-hmm.
years, that we always just travel together.
Right,
But
right.
it was a totally different feeling and it was exciting. And you're part of the solo female traveler world, and you wrote a book,
I
which
did.
I have.
Yes, she has it.
It kind of blurs in
It
the
kind of blurs.
background.
Yeah.
I better not move it. Called Inspired.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a collaboration of 9 solo female travelers.
Yes.
So how did you create this collaboration?
So that same trip when I was going through Southeast Asia, actually that excuse me, that location where the idea of the Ninja Gypsy popped into my head was the same place where the book idea was inspired. And it was in this teeny tiny little hostel in the middle of nowhere, Cambodia. And when I was there, I met this other American who had traveled to 6 different continents. And she had just gotten back from Antarctica from working there for like 6 months. And I know, I was like, you can work in Antarctica? What? Are you a scientist? And she's a truck driver. She's a van driver. She
Oh,
ferries
okay.
the scientists back and forth between the work zone and the home base. And she was telling me about all these places she had been and her adventures. And she was like 26 years old. And
Wow.
I was like, whoa, like goals. I was so inspired by her and her story. And then I asked her, I was like, well, do you do this by yourself or do you do this with someone else? She's like, oh no, I've only ever done it by myself. I sometimes have some friends join me. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy that you can do that. And I was so inspired by her. I was like, wow, people really need to hear your story. And then I realized, they need to hear all of our stories, these women who have traveled. And I had met some amazing solo female travelers during my travels. So I kind of just kept reaching out to them and I was like, hey, you want to join this book? You want to write your story and inspire other people to travel solo? And they did. And I even found a few people in our travel community who, again, I had never met before, and still haven't met to this day, who ended up joining the book and wanting to write their stories.
And for me, being an outsider on the solo female traveler world looking in, I found it interesting because it was a way to get their perspective and different things that they had come across. And there was some quite dangerous situations that they had been placed in that they, thankfully came out safely, but kind of went, wow, no. And you can almost, when you're reading it, go, don't go there. Don't do that.
Right. Yes. Unfortunately, being a solo female traveler does come with its risks. And, but you have risks going in a group as well. You have risks going with a partner. It's all just about how you approach your situations. And what I found so amazing about these women is, yes, they got put into some sticky situations a couple of times, but they used their intelligence and their courage to get out before anything bad actually happened to them, which I thought was inspiring. Even if you get into a sticky situation, whether it's here or, in an American city or in a country far, far away, you have options and you just have to think about it and use your intelligence to get you out.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. It's not just when you travel, it's even where you live. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up in Seattle, which, as much as I love Seattle as a city, it's not always the safest place to be in the United States. And I was probably more scared sometimes in my own home city than I was when I was traveling abroad. Like walking home at night, no bueno, don't want that.
No.
So versus overseas, I was safer over there than sometimes being at home. So I tell people it's the same thing. Like, imagine your most dangerous city in your country. What would you do there? Do the same thing overseas, right?
Exactly.
Don't go to the bad neighborhoods. Don't, get drunk and then not have a way to get home or not have someone to help you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So travel gives us the freedom to create connections
Mm-hmm.
with other people. What is the greatest travel connection or human connection that you have made in your travels?
So you sent me this question and I thought about it for a while. And I've met a lot of really amazing people while I've been traveling.
Mhm.
And I've made some lifelong friends that I will probably be friends with, forever and ever and ever. But the most inspiring human connection I made was actually when I was in Luang Prabang in Laos. I was there during a water festival. And during this water festival, it's like a full out water match between the locals. They're throwing out at each other, and between the tourists, you are not safe. You are going to get wet. It's how it is. And people walk around with super soakers, and you're having a ball. It's so much fun. And I was there and I had a super soaker. I bought one. They're like huge water guns, and you fill it up with water and you have this great time. And I eventually got tired and I went and I sat up on this hill, and because it was hot, and I sat down, and this little girl came up to me, and she had on this little pink backpack, which had like it was like the water pouch. And then she had a little tiny gun. So she came over to me, and obviously she didn't speak English. I don't speak the language of Laos. And she just wanted to look at me and wanted to show me her little water gun. So she held it out to me, like not a word. She didn't speak a single word to me, but she held it out, and I looked at it, and I was like, okay, what's kind of going on here? And she was very curious. And so I gave it back to her, and then she pointed at the super soaker, and I realized that she had shown me her toy so that she could look at mine. And so I handed it to her, and she started to play with it a little bit and was squirting some water into the grass. And she smiled at me and was having a good time and giggling. And she must have been 7 years old, maybe. And the whole interaction maybe lasted 5 minutes. And her parents called her over. And so she gave me back the toy, she bowed, and then gave me a big smile and walked away. And I thought that was probably the greatest human connection that I've made, because this little girl who, knows that she doesn't look like me, doesn't sound like me, doesn't know my language, doesn't know anything about me, just had the ability to show human kindness and curiosity and to just make a connection with a stranger. And I thought that was amazing, and I wish that there was more of that openness elsewhere in the world. And she had no fear. Maybe it's because her parents were nearby, but like she wasn't afraid of me or anything. And I don't look super scary. No, I'm not a super scary looking individual, which was probably part of it. And being female was probably another part. But yeah, it was just really inspiring to see a connection with a little girl I know I'm never going to see again. And even if I did, I wouldn't recognize her because she'd be all grown up.
Yeah, but you'll remember her forever.
But I will remember her forever. She even let me take a picture of us together. I have a selfie of us,
which
nice. She thought was really fun.
Yeah.
She was making all the faces. And
you mentioned about the looking different, and she probably noticed you because you did look different. And I think it was a blog you wrote a while ago, and you were in Korea. Was it? And people kept coming up to you because you looked so different.
Yeah. I lived in South Korea for about 13 months. And while American teachers, I was an English teacher over there. While American teachers are common, you're still not a common entity in the smaller towns. Like where I was in a small city called Changwon, and being blatantly like glow in the dark white with long blonde hair at the time, my hair's shorter now. They would just like watch you because you're like, whoa, you're so different. And they'd want to come up and talk to me because they knew that I spoke English. And so they'd want to come up and practice. And if they were children, they wanted to touch me, which was cute because Americans or white people have arm hair, which is a novelty for them. Some of my students one time pet me when they first got to know me. They were like, teacher, really? Why do you have fur? I was like, okay, one, it's not fur. But yeah, they were very confused because they'd never seen it before. They'd only ever been in their isolated kind of communities, because there's not a whole lot of diversity over there yet. It's getting better and more diverse, but it's not like living in America where you can see everything under the sun.
Yeah.
But
Canada too. Yeah.
yeah, and they were also very confused by having blue eyes. They were like, why are your eyes not brown?
Yeah.
And even over there on their licenses, it's not, hair color and eye color aren't an option. It's just they don't even put it on there because everyone has brown. Wow. So yeah, it was very interesting being different, and being recognizably different to the point where people would want to talk to me. It was cool and concerning when I first got there because I was like, what's going on? But I figured it out and got used to it.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And my son, it's the same. When he went to Japan for 2.5 months, he's over 6 feet tall, white, red hair, and he stood out. He stood out, like in the trains and stuff. Yeah.
That's one thing. I'm grateful to be short because I blend in well. I can just kind of go into the crowd.
He would walk down the streets and they'd have the umbrellas and they'd be whacking him in the face with the umbrellas. That was annoying, he said. But these are the things we learn when we travel, though. You get involved in the different cultures and see how they are, and we learn to understand each other better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, every person that I met while traveling, they all have the same goals. They want to be happy. They want to provide for their families. They want to be safe. They want to put food on the table. Like there's no huge difference. It's just your outwards appearance and your language, maybe. It's just your circumstances, not what's inside. That's different.
Exactly. And that's beautiful. So Chelsey, leave us with one safety tip that you think people often overlook when they travel.
Oh, that's a good one. We actually talked about the safety tip I was going to talk about, which was avoid dangerous places. We'll give us a different one. Let's see. Okay, one thing that I would recommend, I'll go to letter C of the ABCs of self-defense, which is to communicate with confidence. Often, especially as women, we are taught that, you need to be quiet, you need to be polite, you need to be kind, you need to be, whatever stereotype that they kind of put you in. And when you're put into a bad situation, or that you're about to be put into a bad situation, it can be hard to speak up for yourself and to lay down ground rules or to say, no, I don't want this. And what we teach is, to communicate with confidence. And if it doesn't stick, say it again and say it louder. You just keep repeating yourself, be a broken record, and you have to keep it short and simple. Like, don't touch me, or I don't want to, or leave me alone, or please back up. You don't have to be rude when you say it. You can say, please back up, or please take a step away from me. But if they don't listen, just say it again and say it louder, and just keep going up until the point where you're making a scene. Once you make a scene, you are now the center of attention, and nobody's going to want to try and drag you out of that scenario. Right. So once you kind of make yourself the spotlight, you are no longer a worthy target. You are too much effort, and they will find a weaker target. So that would be my recommendation. And that's not just for, people who want to like murder you or anything like that. We're talking people who want to pick you up in a bar, people who are too aggressive with friendship even, or who are too aggressive with dating or wanting a dance or whatever it is. If anything makes you uncomfortable, communicate with confidence and be done.
Very good. That's excellent. That's good for even everyday life.
Yes, it is.
Take note next time you go to the bar. Yeah. Very good. So if people want to find out more about you, Chelsey, where's the best place to find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on the ninjagypsy.com. And we do have Facebook and Instagram, again, under the Ninja Gypsy handles. Feel free to email me, talk to me, DM me, message me, whatever floats your boat. I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to read some of these articles, have at it. That's kind of where it's at. And if you'd like to find my book, you can find it on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time today, Chelsey. It was great to finally talk with you. I hope someday we can meet in person.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your morning and day in Tucson.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.